Good evening, everyone. The Mount Panorama race circuit is one of the most surprising features in Australian history. Not less because of the fact that Mount Bathurst was quite literally designed to ensure people had paying jobs and work during the Great Depression, but also that as Zolt Barabas goes through the final corner, he's actually part of a public road. Speed limits outside of normal race events don't exceed anywhere more than 45 miles an hour, but the general public every single day has the opportunity to race around this circuit. And what a circuit it is. One of the most unique in the motorsport calendar. The mountain quite literally can have a different weather condition to the rest of the racetrack. For example, the pit lane could be completely clear, and as Barabas goes up through turn number 3, you can see that the mountain mists can start to descend out of absolutely nowhere. As a result of the elevation changes, it means that brake temperatures, tyre pressures, visibility and the cooling of the engines are kind of almost a lottery to predict. And tonight we will certainly be in for a lottery at one of the hardest race circuits in GT3 racing. It's round 12 of season 12 here with ACC Race Nation. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator as always for the championship. It's a pleasure and a privilege as always to be commentating, and tonight will be one for the books, I guarantee it. The reason for that is, as you've seen on Zolt Barabas's opening lap, mistakes can be plenty. The walls are incredibly close. There's no room for error outside of potentially turn 1 at Hell Corner, but outside of that, the drivers aren't going to be playing with much runoff. They will just be hitting the barriers if anything goes outside of the normal racing line. We're underway of qualifying, of course. For those that are new to the championship, it's 20 minutes for qualifying, and Barabas is going to go flying off the road going into the chase, so he's going to lose a bit of time, probably invalidate his lap as well. So Zolt in the Nissan GTR for the evening. Doesn't look like we've got any other GTRs in for tonight. But let's have a look at the standings currently in provisional qualifying. Will Fielding's currently one of only 2 drivers to have set an official lap time, 2-minute 1.6 from the BMW man. Mikey Keating is second in an updated livery this evening. He's got a splash of grey to the sunshine of Australia there in the Lamborghini Huracan. He's 5.8 seconds behind currently. And then Jacob Byford-Rue, another driver who has got a slightly alternative colour scheme for tonight's event, hits the grass and spins round at turn 1. The only part of the runoff he could use he managed to find, so that's nicely done for Jacob. Although reversing into the gravel trap, probably not the ideal racing line through there. Joe Warner is the 4th driver to have set a lap time. Everybody else circulating, including Howard Dunn, Zolt Barabas, who we've covered already, Lois Mangle, Matt Phillips, Liam Watkinson, Danny Zoutenbayer, Steve Hall, Danny Felix, Mark Chapman, Dennis Penders, Jamie Lee, and tonight, the last driver on the field is Jeffrey Van Buren, as Howard Dunn moves himself into second position. Now, the big story for tonight is that neither Stuart Packham or Dan Hatton are starting the event. Now, this is crucial for the championship because, of course, Dan Hatton leads the title race by 5 points from Stuart Packham, so those two won't be scoring. Now, the other element of this is that neither of those two now have any dropped scores available to them. If you're new to the championship, just a reminder that drivers are allowed to have 2 dropped scores. Dan Hatton has missed his 3rd event of the season, so he's going to be on 259. That's his actual total. Stuart Packham retired last week, of course, after the accident at Suzuka, and he's also missed round number 8 as well, so he will stay on 254, which means it's a big opportunity for this man, Mark Chapman, the reigning champion, of course, of season 11, to take the championship lead, providing he gets a solid result. Now, Bathurst, as we have speculated and talked about already, isn't an easy circuit to navigate, so Chappers just needs to navigate this circuit. Easier said than done, let's be honest. It is a story track with tons of history. And the other one point to note about Mark Chapman is he's in the exact same position as the leading 2 in the driver's title. If he retires from this event, he has no more drop scores either. He's missed 2 rounds of the 15-round season. So for Chapman, as he puts himself second on the grid, this is a big opportunity for him to make a statement performance. Let's see if he can take control of the championship. We've got drivers out on laps at the moment. Let's go and find someone to take us on board with this wonderful, wonderful circuit here in Panorama in New South Wales. Of course, the track's been here for an especially long time. I believe it was opened in 1938. Loads of events still going on, but it's a 3.861 mile track. I'm just looking to find someone who's appropriately placed. I think Will Fielden looks to be appropriately placed, although that's not the placement you want coming out of the chase at all, and he's going into the pits, so we can't follow him on a lap. Zolt Barabas is ideally placed, actually, is Zolt, so let's see how the Nissan driver does. He now comes towards the next couple of corners of the chase after going down the Conrod straight. Now, of course, Zolt made his debut, the Hungarian, last week in 17th place at Suzuka. He was unlucky, actually, Zolt. He had a disconnection. He got back into the lobby, but it became more of a test session for him. But let's ride on board in the Nissan then towards turn 1 here at Mount Panorama. He's got to get the braking zone right for the first big heavy stop of the circuit into Hell Corner. Down to 60 miles an hour effectively for the Nissan, and then he's going to blast up towards Mountain Straight. Typically an easy part of the track to get used to, but of course aquaplaning has happened in heavy rain conditions before. No chance of that tonight. Into Griffin's Bend, he's got to get the braking zone right, down into 3rd gear for the Nissan. Keeps the car nice and tight through there and uses a little bit of exit curb, really good through that corner. Into the cutting, it's left-hander, a double blind left-hander here. Got to get the car tucked in nice and tight, and he's just had a little over rotation, but manages to gather it all up for turns 5 and 6 at Quarry Corner. Into the right-hander, another blind apex as they go over the top of the hill and through to Reed Park. Down into Frog Hollow, another absolutely on the edge of your seat moment through the left-handers through here, and now into Sullivan Park and McPhillamy Park. Proper commitment from the Hungarian. Down through the S's, and he's just got to brace himself properly for the corner, but that's how easily it can go wrong, and he slams into both barriers on either side. Through the dipper then. This lap will be impacted by that. He's 4th at the moment, but he's got a couple of corners left. Into Forest Elbow. Challenging left-hander that always seems to get away from you. We always want to be impatient on the throttle. And then Zolt will now pop down the Conrod straight, but he's deciding to abandon that lap. So we'll see if we can pick it up with Steve Hall in the Ferrari. Over the top we go and into the chase. The most famous sequence, I think, of this entire circuit. Got to brake at the 150 metre marker board, down into 2nd gear, right on the buzzing of the limiter there through turn 21 and 22, but Steve's done a solid job, looking like a man revitalised in recent rounds. One more corner to go at Murray's, the last of the 23 corners, into the left-hander, took the car in quite nicely. He's going to come across the line, and what will this time be? It will look to be an improvement by the seams of it, but whether that's just Assetto Corsa's timing towers telling us that's the case is another matter. We've had a few technical issues, shall we say, with Assetto Corsa's timings so far this season, but Steve Hall at the minute is right on the front row, and it'll be a really good result to see him up there. Good evening to John, hope you're doing okay. I know that you're not in the best health physically at the moment, considering everything with your back. I hope you do get better, sir. And good evening to Mikey, hope you're doing alright, mate. Want to see a nice result from you today, sir. I want to get a race finish. Mikey Keating there doing a good job in qualifying so far. I believe he was in the top 10 last I checked, which would be really encouraging. He's just out by 0.2 of a second at the minute, but that's encouraging. Steve Hall slams into the barrier, going through the left-hander there. And that's what we're going to see a lot of tonight. I do feel as Joe Warner kind of didn't really want to move at all. Oh, and there you go, Steve's into the wall again. This is what we're going to see tonight. Lots of drivers making mistakes, having incidents. Damage will be a factor. So you could be looking at drivers who aren't normally near the podium places fighting on merit because they're just keeping out of the wall. Credit to Matt Phillips, up in 7th place right now. That's a really strong qualifying effort from the McLaren driver. Really good to see him up in the top 10. Matt seemingly starting to improve week upon week, I'm noticing, the number 73. That's a pleasure to see. Dennis Penders, I'll talk about him in a little bit because he's doing very well in the championship at the moment. He could, depending on how tonight goes, push himself into championship contention and outside championship contention, but still there nonetheless. Don't rule him out. Byford Roos in 9th place. Danny Zoutenby is 10th. Mikey's 11th. Joe Warner 12th. Lois Mangle yet to set a lap time. He did that last week at Suzuka, did Lois. Liam Watkinson's in 14th. I've seen Liam. That Porsche looks very lively this evening. He's been all over the track. I watched him during practice, and when he gets the lap together, it looks very, very quick and effective, but it's the inconsistency that might trip him up this evening. Danny Felix, fresh off the brilliant result that he had last week at Suzuka, he's in 15th, and Jamie Lee rounds out the drivers. The one driver I haven't talked too much about, Jeffrey Van Buren, he's on the second row of the grid, is Jeffrey, and I think he is another driver who's after a good result tonight. He's been doing fine since he's swapped back into the Ferrari, has Jeffrey, but I feel there's another big result to come. He got that second place at Silverstone. Let's not forget his first podium of the season 2 rounds ago in that 2-hour endurance race. He was great there. Can he follow that up tonight? He was a bit anonymous last week at Suzuka, but that not necessarily was his own fault. It was the weather conditions just caught drivers on the wrong side of track conditions, and he was sadly on the wrong side of that. We've got yellow flags for Joe Warner, and I'm going to say that's Matt Phillips, so a commentator's curse going on there for Matt. Unfortunately, the Canadian, after me praising him, has gone around at the left-hander. Hello to everyone who's in the Twitch chat at the moment. Good to see you all again, as always. I always enjoy everybody's company during these events. It's great to have you all here. Any comments you wish to make, do put them in below. If you're not following on Twitch just yet and you're watching for the first time, do give us a follow. It'd be great to see you for the remaining races. Oh, Jeffrey Van Buren will hope to also join us for the remaining races of the season. That was a untimely accident for the 296 GT3, but Will Fielding a second clear at the minute, putting in the type of form that we've seen previously from him, which isn't surprising. But last week at Suzuka, he was looking comfortable for potentially another race win. He was flying, and then he got that stop and go penalty, and he ended up finishing 5th. So he's not immune to mistakes as Will. And tonight he's just got to make sure that on arguably the most challenging circuit of the championship so far, He's got to keep his concentration levels to the absolute maximum. Howard Dunn running in third place. That's a really strong qualifying effort from the AMR. Both of them AMR V8s setting the exact same lap time. That's fantastic. Really great driving that from Howard Dunn in that lap. We'd be pleased with that with the South African. He's still looking for that first podium, of course, in ACC Race Nation. And he's not been far away. He had that race a couple of rounds ago where he finished in 5th. I believe, I think that was also at Silverstone, similar to Jeffrey Van Buren, where he also got his best result of the championship so far. But Howard Dunn just starting to look more confident again. He had a few rounds out, and I think that maybe has just cycled him out of the championship a little bit, and he's just took a bit of time getting reacquainted with that car. But he's looking like he's took a step forward in that AMR V8. Mikey getting right out of his way. But 3.5 minutes left to go in qualifying. On board with Mark Chapman as he goes through the next couple of corners here at the dipper. To that left-hander, that is the dipper, and then through the right of 16 and then into Forrest's elbow. He is up on this lap so far. He just needs to keep it nice and tight through here, which he has done. But despite gaining 3/10 on the approach to the circuit, he's now level on the approach to the corner. He's level with the lap time, so he's about half a tenth, I think he's going to be by the end of the straight down. That Aston Martin roaring up to 177 miles an hour. Into the chase we go, down through the gears. Got to keep this nice and tidy. He was right on the limit of adhesion there, and that's a nice committed line through 21 and 22. He's got Murray's to get through. And here he goes, braking for the last corner. Keeps it nice and tight again. And it's just another consistent lap time from Chapman. And he goes less than a tenth slower than what he'd done previously. But if he's maximising his limit now, that's not a bad place to be. If he can continue hitting those lap times consistently, he'll be in a great spot. Mikey saying in the comments, I'll do my best, but no promises. I want a promise from you, Mikey, that you're going to finish this race. You're going to stick at it. You're not going to give up. That's a promise that I want. That's what all the fans want. There's 16 drivers tonight. You can get your best result of the season if you just take your time. That's what it's about. John, yeah, you're saying exactly the same thing that I've been alluding to. Keep it off the walls, and you've got a good result inbound. That's what it is absolutely all about here at Mount Panorama. Zolt Barabas in 6th position at the minute, which is reflective of his qualifying performance he did last week at Suzuka. I'd really like to see actually how Zolt Barabas would do against Davy Zoutenbayer. We've not seen two Nissans share the same track in ACC Race Nation, and I really would like to see what the bar test is between those two, because Davey has for a long time championed the Nissan, but no one else really outside of Jordan Harding a couple of seasons ago has really driven that car. So it'd be a good litmus test for the Hungarian to go up against the Dutchman. Speaking of the Dutchman, where's his brother right now? Danny Zoutenbayer, the season 10 champion, down in 11th place at the moment. Danny, another one of the drivers who swapped cars earlier on in the season, and he swapped ends through the S's and planted it in the wall. I think I remember last time when Danny raced around Bathurst, he had a challenging event. I don't think it's one of his favourite circuits, and sure enough, the Dayglow Yellow Ferrari is done for qualifying. Let's get back to the garage. We've got less than 20 seconds to go. Will Fielding won't be going any faster. Chapman's got one more lap available to him. See how the British driver can improve. Dennis Penders, is he going to get there at the line? He's going to get there. He's going to get one more lap in that Ferrari. We are now done for qualifying. So Jacob Byford in the Audi is 12, 3.2 seconds off provisional pole. Howard Dunn, can he make any further improvements in that AMR V8? He's running towards the line now, and he can't. So he will stay a maximum at a 3rd position. I think Mikey's... Yes, I was just about to say, I think Mikey's had a bit of a spin. I think he's bounced off the curbs. So less than ideal for Mikey, but still 13th place is not a bad position to be in. Jamie Lee still trying to strike towards that first top 10 result of the season. He's right there at the minute in 10th place. Can he improve on that qualifying time? It goes across the line. He's sat in 10th place, 3 seconds away from pole. Joe Warner, he gets a little improvement. He goes a second faster. He's in front of Liam Watkinson though, so that's some bragging rights between those two. Steve Hall, yes, much more like it from Steve. Gets within a second of the pole sitter. And that'll be a 2-minute 2.0 from Steve Hall. That will be a bit of a psychological block, that, for drivers, because they'll see that they're not in the 2-minute ones like Will. But don't rule anybody out in this race. Coming up in just a moment's time. Barabas to the line. He will stay in 6th position. That's his second best qualifying of the season. I was going to say it's his best, but it's actually his second best. What about Chapman now? The only other driver I feel who can really challenge Will Fielding at the front of the race, into the left-hander at turn 23. And can the AMR V8 move forward? Yes, it can. And that is a competitive lap time from Mark Chapman to put himself within 4/10 of Will Fielding. It's Dennis Penders into the final corner. He's doing another great job in the championship this season. Dennis towards the line, gets himself to 7th. And it looks like that's that. Jamie Lee's just circulating on track. He's going back to the pits. I don't think he can set another flying lap. Something's going on with his ghost. But Will Fielding, another pole position for the M4 GT3 driver. The number 22 has done it again. Mark Chapman within striking range of the BMW in 2nd place. And he's got a glorious chance tonight to take the lead of the drivers' standings. More on that in a moment. Steve Hall is 3rd, with Howard Dunn a brilliant 4th place in the number 23. Jeffrey Van Buren is 5th, and then the group separate out. Zolt Barabas is 6th. Then it's Dennis Penders and a brilliant qualifying from Matt Phillips to go into 8th position on the 4th row of the grid. Danny Felix and Jamie Lee round out the top 10. Then it's Danny Zoutenbayer and Jacob Byford-Rue on row 6, with Mikey Keating, Joe Warner on row 7. There's Watkinson and Lois Bangle are the last of the runners on row number 8. Hi Steve, yeah, exciting quali, absolutely was. You do need a clean race tonight. That's going to be critical for everybody. I'm very glad that we've got written confirmation that Mikey has said he promises he will finish. Well done, Mikey. That's what we like to hear. And John, making a big comment there, really. I'm just going through it in my own mind. Yeah, it can all go wrong so quickly. You know, back markers, lap traffic are going to be a big factor around here. John's saying in the comments, to those that can't see, he's saying that he was leading the race here a couple of years ago, came up to a back marker, slammed into it, and then ran the last 2 laps with steering at 90 degrees. It's all possible. Jacob Byford-Rue saying he would have been 6th. I mean, to be fair, Jacob, your practice session was quite competitive. I did see you were a lot closer to Will Fielding in practice, and it's not like he's moved the goalpost by a big margin either, so there's more speed to come from the 007. But we are going to give ourselves a breather, and we'll be back in just a moment.
30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
So just a few seconds remaining before we get underway for the formation lap here at Mount Panorama Circuit. 6.2 kilometres of racing action on the one lap. 1 hour of battles to come here for round 12. We are now in, of course, the business end of the championship. It all comes down to the next 3 races to settle the championship, and I do feel that tonight it really can open the championship wide here. I really do feel that Mark Chapman's got a glorious chance. If he finishes second, by my calculations, he'll take the lead of the championship by 2 points, which will separate himself, Dan Hatton and Stuart Packham to just 7 points between the 3, which would be a barnstormer of a finish to the season. I'm sure we'll look forward to that in the coming races. Now next week, the next 3 races will decide the season 12 champion, of course, but we have 3 more races after tonight. We've got Kyalami next week in South Africa, Laguna Seca over in America, and then it's the legendary Nürburgring Nordschleife for 24 hours on the 3rd of June, which coincidentally is a couple of days after my first ever half marathon. So if I'm tired on that day, you will understand why. But Will Fielding leads the formation lap here. Whilst he does that, I'm just going to go through the championship standings just to give you context of where everybody is. So Dan Hatton leads the championship on 259 points. He's obviously not racing tonight, so nobody will be carrying the 30 kilos of maximum ballast. Stuart Packham is second on 254 points, and then it's Mark Chapman in third on 232. Chapper's carrying 20 kilos of ballast after finishing second last week. He's the only driver tonight who's carrying any ballast at all. Jordan Harding, incredibly, is still fourth in the driver standings on 212. What a championship it could have been had he have been able to have finished the season. We could have definitely had a 4-way fight. Dennis Penders is 5th on 209. He's slowly creeping up in the championship order. Do not rule him out. As is the pole sitter, Will Fielding. He's on 206. You could argue, if he does the rest of the championship, don't rule him out either. Jeffrey Van Buren is 7th on 194, with Davy Zoutenbayer, the Dutchman, on 185 in 8th place. Hartle Toby, who got his first podium last week at Suzuka, sadly isn't racing tonight, but he is on 177 points. Of course, had he been racing, he would have been carrying that ballast of 15 kilos for finishing in 3rd position. And Bence Biro, the last driver in the championship inside the top 10, is on 162. We haven't seen Bence since the 2-hour event at Silverstone, where he sadly retired. He was due to start last week, but he's got a DNS. And Matt Phillips, Howard Dunn, those two have got a great chance to sneak into the top 10 of the drivers' standings tonight. We'll see how they get on. But this has got all the hallmarks of being another blockbuster of an event. It always is an eventful race here at Mount Panorama. Every single time we've come here, there's been some form of drama, surprise results. I was looking back through the last few championships. I remember Ross Harris was racing inside the top 2 in the first half an hour of the race before it all fell away for him. We've had, in recent times, John Wells finished inside the top 6 in the last few seasons as well. It absolutely throws up a lot of big results. Where is Mark Chapman going? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that isn't how you do not do a formation lap. Chapman getting very eager on the exit of the chase there. That did not go to plan for him. So the drivers lining themselves up now. It's all about getting their cars into position. The bonus for Will Fielding is that because he's got pole position, he will have the inside line for turn 1, which is vitally important as they go into this event. Lights ablaze for the pole sitter to clear the gap. 1 hour of racing, 6 minutes past 2 local time here at Mount Panorama. as the drivers come towards the start-finish line. We're about to go racing, and the race is live here from Bathurst, and that's the best start that Will Fielding could have needed. He's going to be comfortably in the lead going into turn 1. That's Howard Dunn getting past Steve Hall for 3rd place, and Zolt Barabas has gone through as well, so a nightmare start for Steve Hall. He's actually under pressure from Jeffrey Van Buren here, but he should be able to maintain 5th place. He's in the slipstream, unlike Van Buren, who has to move across. Matt Phillips looking to make a move. He's up to 7th already. It's a glorious start for the Canadian. He's going to be on the outside. Oh, Steve Hall has a huge snap of oversteer as we go through the right-hander, but manages to collect it all together at Griffin's Bend. Into the left-hander of the cutting for the first time. Will Fielding still in the lead of the race. Lewis Mangle just at the back there, but Howard Dunn, he'll be pinching himself. He's in the top 3 at the start. There's Chapman in second. Zolt Barabas also moved forward as a result of Steve's inauspicious start, is how we would call that. Then it's Phillips. Oh, Jamie Lee will have a huge slide through the left-hander, just about gathered it all together. And he's going to have another slide again going through McPhillamy Park, and we go into the effectively the S's right now, and Jamie Lee's a little bit offline, and that's a little move for Danny Felix to squeak on through. And that's two McLaren on McLaren action going past one another there, but it's a good start from the drivers on this opening lap. Of course, everyone very attentive at the moment, nobody wanting to have any form of massive incident. There's Jamie Lee, as we said, just been overtaken. Joe Warner's up to 13th, so that's a good solid start for the Mercedes. Lewis Mangle and Liam Watkinson a little bit further down, so they're a little bit further back. I wonder what happened to Liam there. He shouldn't be that far back. Mikey Keating running in 12th place in the Lamborghini, so a good solid start for the Huracan, the only one in the field tonight. And that's Zolt Barabas, who's gone off the road, and Jacob Byford-Rue's done the same. Byford-Rue gets back on the track, but Zolt Barabas has tumbled down the order, unfortunately, and his dream start has turned into a disaster after just 2 and a bit minutes. Here we go then. At the end of the first lap, it's Will Fielding under pressure from Mark Chapman in second. Then it's Howard Dunn, Steve Hall, Jeffrey Van Buren, Matt Phillips up to 6th place. What a start. Then it's Dennis Penders, Danny Felix, Jamie Lee, Mikey Keating running inside the top 10 in front of Danny Zoutenbayer. Byford-Rue after his spin is 12th. Then it's Joe Warner. Then it's Liam Watkinson. And Zolt Barabas is 15th. And sadly, we've lost Lewis Mangle already at the start. Nightmare for him. But dream opening sequence for Matt Phillips. He'll be delighted with that start. But long way to go in this event so far. So we'll try not to say too much. We'll ride on board with Jeffrey Van Buren. This is the closest group at the moment, with Steve Hall at the front of it. The quartet running together through the left-hander. Oh, that's a bit wide from Steve. Doesn't want to go too far off the racing line. There are severe marbles out there. As Van Buren goes down through the gears, and Matt Phillips following him as well. Dennis Penders just following this train too. Danny Felix, he's stalking the back of the group in the McLaren. But a good opening gambit here from Van Buren. Just got himself settled into a rhythm, and now he's putting the pressure on Steve Hall, and this is arguably where you'd want to be at the opening point of the race, is just putting a little bit of pressure on the driver in front, not harrying them at Bathurst. It's a little bit different at this racetrack. You're in for the long haul as opposed to a dry race at Silverstone, for example. You can take your time planning moves and then just fully attacking, but Bathurst, it's more about the consistency, which is what everybody needs. It looks like Lewis Mangle is back in the race. I think he might have disconnected. It's going to go a lap down, unfortunately, in the M4. But again, it's another test session for him, and I think that's crucial. He's new to sim racing, getting up to speed. And I think the mileage is right now more important than worrying about fastest laps and track position. We go up the mountain straight. Hall still leading. I was going to say the quartet, but it's actually split a little bit. Very brave on the brakes from the Dutchman. Looking like he's got a bit more confidence than the Season 8 champion at the moment. Will Fielding still leading the way. This is Will Fielding's view. He's got absolutely nobody to worry about. Lewis Mangle in the pits. Howard Dunn there in third. And Zolt Barabas is in 14th position. We'll have a look back at what happened to him on that opening lap as we follow Matt Phillips. Into the wall he goes. That's the first big tag of the wall that we've seen in the event. Looks like it's caused a little bit of damage on the front left of that car, so that'll be impacting him, and he'll have to live with that now until his pit stop. So just turned in a little bit too early for that corner at the right-hander through Quarry. And this quartet that we initially had has now turned into a trio. And it's Matt Phillips now leading this train. Jamie Lee's also got a queue of cars behind him. Let's have a look back from the number 43. So you've got Mikey, you've got Danny Zoutenbayer, you've got Jacob Byford-Rue having a slide on the exit of Forest Elbow. Those four together, and then Joe Warner's a little bit further back and being caught by Zolt Barabas. So you've got a couple of groups that have formed. What will be crucial now for the drivers as Danny Zoutenbayer looks quite close to the back of Mikey going into the left-hander. Oh, he's got crossed up. He's had a little slide and Mikey's going to bounce into the wall, and that's a shame for Mikey. Should be able to get that car turned round. And he does. He moves it out of the way, and Joe Warner and Zolt Barabas will go through. That's a shame for Mikey. He was running in the top 10. But he was just under a bit of pressure there from Danny Zoutenbayer, and just looks like the champion from season 10 just put him under a bit too much pressure. Mikey sadly sliding off the road, offline. But it didn't look like a too big contact with the barrier for Mikey. He should be able to get around the lap with no further issues. Let's hope he can carry on. Liam Watkinson there, he's now caught up to the tail end of what Mikey is recovering from. Steve Hall still in front of Van Buren. And Matt Phillips also still in front of Dennis Penders and Danny Felix. Penders at the minute feeling like he is the filling in the sandwich at the moment, is the Belgian. Of course, don't forget, Dennis had that first ever podium last season at round number 14. Oh, is that Steve Hall in the wall? It is. There's going to be a pile up here, and Dennis runs into the back of Matt Phillips, and Danny Felix runs into the back of Dennis Penders. That all came from Steve Hall's mistake, and Jeffrey Van Buren had to check up. I think there was a bit of contact for him, and then Phillips got ran into the back of by Penders. There's going to be damage for all of the cars involved in that one. And Steve Hall, it did look like the car was moving. It was a little bit lively, and here comes Penders. So I think that's a bit too much damage on Phillips's car. That's going to impact his straight line speed, and the Ferrari moves up to 5th position. So Matt Phillips will probably be lamenting his luck a little bit. Look at Danny Felix trying to find a way past his fellow McLaren stablemate. He's on the inside for Murray's corner at turn 23. Is that contact? It might be. It's very close between the two. If there was, Felix backed out of it in the end. And Danny Zoutenbayer's going slowly as well. Very slowly down the Conrod Straight. Oh, and that's significant damage. Danny's had a huge moment out there somewhere on circuit, and his car is limping fully left. And that is going to be significant issues for the former champ. I did say at the top of this session, this is not Danny's circuit. He's not really had much luck around here, and sadly for him, he's found the barrier, and that's going to be a big repair job from the mechanics. So already we're starting to see it. We're not even 10 minutes into the race yet. We've had a significant number of drivers go off the road. But Will Fielding, Mark Chapman, Howard Dunn and Jeffrey Van Buren are your top 4. Then it's Dennis Penders, Matt Phillips, who's being very, very much stalked by Danny Felix. Jacob Byford-Rue is bouncing through 8th place at the moment. Then it's Zolt Barabas. Liam Watkinson is 10th. Mikey Keating is 11th. Joe Warner, it says he's in 12th place, which looks like he is in front of Jamie Lee there, because we couldn't see the way that the cameras had sort of formed a bit of an optical illusion Is that Mikey in the wall? I thought it was. Yeah, Mikey has slipped into the wall and Jamie Lee hits the wall, and you're starting to see the mistakes now already. So for those guys, that's going to be potentially a trip back to the pit lane. Let's go to the replay. Let's have a look at what happened at the start then. Because Zolt Barabas was running quite strongly, and then all of a sudden he was sliding off the road, and we don't quite know what happened to him. So let's have a look. Coming into turn 21, and he just goes over the curb and round the car goes. Wasn't even a significant moment for him, and then he actually spun the car trying to get it pointed in a straight line, so that cost him time as well. So bit of an unfortunate one that for Zolt. And then we cut to Steve Hall, because Steve was running relatively fine, and then next thing you know, at the front of this queue, his car was dancing around a little bit. We'll follow it with Jeffrey Van Buren actually, because he'll have a proper view of what's going on. So here we go then, coming through effectively what is Sullivan Park here, and then into the left-hander and McPhillamy. And now does Steve just lose the back end? He's a little bit offline, and then that just bounces, and he bounces off the curb and into the wall. Little bit of contact with Van Buren, and unfortunately that sends Steve facing the wrong way. So let's get another camera angle for him. Let's get it from this perspective. It'll be a little bit better to sort of figure out what happened directly. Yeah, he's just a little bit offline. That puts him onto the curb a little bit too quickly, and then bang, into the wall he goes. And he gets a little tag and another little tag into the barrier. And then it's about spinning the car around, and oh, he has to do a Austin Powers 50-point turn. He did, oh no, and then he had more contact. So who was that who came steaming in? He was trying to get the car turned round, and somewhat, that's where Danny Zoutenbayer's damage has come from. So he's got the double yellow flags. Here we go, into the next sequence of corners. Double yellow flags are flying. Oh, and then it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. Oh dear. Now, that'll be one for the stewards to have a look at. I mean, there's not much you can do realistically if you've hit the wall. It's very difficult to try and get the car turned around there. But we have a restock, we have a recheck, we have a think about where everybody's up to. So Will Fielding's still leading the way. The closest fight now on circuit is, well, it was Zolt Barabas and Matt Phillips, but Matt has gone into the pits, so that damage clearly too significant to continue on with. So sadly for Matt, who was running in the, briefly in 5th place, he's now into pit lane. So that's brought Zolt Barabas back into contention in 8th position. Mikey's in the pits getting his damage fixed, but he's in front of Danny Zoutenbayer and Steve Hall. That's going to be huge damage for Danny. It's going to take him a while to fix that one. And Jacob Byford-Rue running in 7th position. I think, as it stands, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain this would be his best ever finish in the championship. Because he's had top 10s before. That much I remember. I remember commentating on his last one. But he hasn't had one for quite a long time. I believe we have to go back to, I want to say it was Mugello, the last time we saw a top 10 result for Jacob Byford-Rue. Yeah, last time he did that was back in season 10. He hasn't had one since. I think his best ever finish was 9th place. I think it was in the same season actually since then. So right now, Byford having a great time out there. And I'm going to take a moment here just to talk a little bit about Jacob, because, and this is a little bit important in terms of context, but this result tonight, what he's doing at the moment is incredibly brilliant, because for those that are unaware, Jacob was in real life was involved in quite a significant accident yesterday in his car. Thankfully, he was unharmed as far as we're aware. That's why he's racing tonight. But nevertheless, you know, to have a big accident like he's had, and we've seen the damage, it's quite significant. He's doing an outstanding job being out there on circuit and performing to what is the best of his ability. He's got Zolt Barabas behind him, but don't take that away from him, even if he gets overtaken. This is a good, solid performance, and with the circumstances, it's even better than that. So let's hope that he can continue that on as Barabas lips over the curb through the right-hander at Griffins. Liam Watkinson running inside the top 10 as well. I mean, this could be the day of days for Liam. Again, I'm now trying to think back to when he last scored a top 10 result. Because I think he had a 11th place result. He's had a couple of 11th place results since he started the championship, but I don't think he's had a top 10. Which again would be a brilliant performance if he could pull that off. So let's see what Liam can do. He's got quite a significant advantage to Jamie Lee, who in turn has a significant advantage over Joe Warner, who Joe Warner, let's not forget as well, is running in 11th position. These guys who are, again, the quartet who are normally at the back of the field, are running relatively well. They're doing a solid job. Is that Steve Hall in the wall again? It is. And that's big damage. Look at this. Look at the wheel. Come on. Look at that. He's 90 degrees. He's doing what John had to do a few seasons ago. And I think this is going to be a big impact for the race. I think he's going to struggle from here. Back in the top 6... Will Fielding still running away with it in the moment. He's 9 seconds practically in front of Mark Chapman. But Howard Dunn has come back towards Chappers. That gap's now 2.3 seconds. So the AMR V8s are starting to close up on one another. Van Buren is keeping them both honest, 4.2 seconds clear of Dennis Penders. But Van Buren's only 3 seconds away from the fight for the podium. And Danny Felix is seemingly buoyed by the confidence he's got of his most recent results. He's running again in the top 6. Just really fabulous driving from a lot of drivers recently who are just getting results that, again, are turning up the form book, and this is what we like to see. Because for some drivers, you know, they can spend a lot of time near the back of the field, struggling a little bit, and then it takes one result and they can transform and become even stronger and challenge more frequently near the front. Now that was damage to the front of Howard Dunn's car. Did we see that? Now that, let's just have a little look back at that. I think Howard Dunn's just done that. I think that's just happened on this lap. So Howard Dunn, and look at the closing speed from Van Buren here, and Dunn's going to try and defend, but there's nothing he can do. And Howard Dunn has hit the wall, and sadly, after closing the gap on Mark Chapman, he's hit the wall quite significantly, and he's going into the pits, I think, by the looks of it. It does look like he's going into pit lane. Yeah, there we go, that's confirmed. So that is a massive shame. He was running so well in the opening 20 minutes of this race. So we lose Howard Dunn from this fight for the podium places. We're going to have a little look at that. I'm sure Howard will be delighted for us to have a look back at what just happened on this lap. So he's perfectly fine. He's running at a really strong pace at this point. Is Howard? Oh, was that? Now look at this. Just in the background, did Jeffrey Van Buren have a half spin? I just want to have a little look at that before we have a look at what happened to Howard Dunn. Let's have a look. Goes into the left hand. That has it. Oh, he just about collected that. All together, gathered it up. Wow. So that was the first mistake, and I wonder if Howard Dunn's looked at that and gone, right, I've got a bit of relief, bit of pressure off the back. And then a couple of corners later, he's finding the barrier and he's hitting it really hard. Just wondering how he's done it though. Into the left, no problems there. Has he hit the wall coming into Forest's elbow? Oh, he's just lost it over the top, yeah. And that was that, just the car let loose. I'll just have a little look in the onboard because it'll be better to see it like that. Down through the gears, over the top, and the car just lets go. And then he whacks the barrier big style. There's a second impact on the barrier, unfortunately, and look at that, he's steering the car practically 90 degrees, and big shame, real shame. So we lose Howard Dunn from the fight for the podium. And Howard Dunn now emerges from the pit, so that is dropped him significantly down the order. I think he'll see Jeffrey Van Buren and Dennis Penders in front of him, and his heart will sink into his boots after that one. He's inside the top 10, is Howard, but he's going to have a not an insignificant gap to try and make up to the drivers in front. So we have a slightly changed order then. Will Fielding is at the front of the race. He's 7.4 seconds in front of Mark Chapman at the minute. So that gap has come down a little bit in recent times. Then it's Chappers, then it's Jeffrey Van Buren, and then it's Dennis Penders as the cameraman zooms over to the other side. In fact, that gap to in fact, I tell you what, that gap between Van Buren and Dennis Penders doesn't look like 2.6 seconds anymore. That looks a little bit closer on this lap. Van Buren just taking it a slightly offline line through the left-hander there at Forest Salvo. Let's just watch as the time ticks over. So Chappers goes up to 8.2 seconds. So I wonder if Will Fielding had a little moment somewhere. 6.9 for Van Buren. 2.1 for Penders. It did look closer. But Penders has taken half a second out of him. And I've never commentated on Dennis Penders getting a podium. It's one of the big regrets that I have from this championship is not seeing his first ever podium. Through no fault of my own. It was just, of course, just scheduling conflicts at the time. But that would be a beautiful story if we could see that. But he's got a long way to go, as I've already said. Gap 2.2 seconds. Danny Felix running in the top 5, on for his best ever result. Jacob Byford-Rue, I think he's going to be under significant pressure. There it is, from Barabas. Let's get on board with the Nissan. So despite that issue at the start where he slid off the road, at turn 20, he is right with the Audi driver. That's a really nice line, that, from the Nissan. That car looks very hooked up at the moment. It's going to look to the inside line at Hell Corner. Thinks about a move, but more just trying to put Byford-Rue off his game. But the number 7 holding steadfast here. But the Nissan in the wheel tracks. Look at that momentum now for the car on board of just closing the gap up towards turn 2. But he's not going to find a through move at turn 2. Ooh, little slide from Byford-Rue. He's feeling that pressure now. Liam Watkinson, by the way, running in 8th place. It is a day for the underdogs at Bathurst. And that's a little bit wide from the Audi. Can the Nissan fire it up the inside? That is a glorious move if he can pull it off, and he can. He tags the wall, but he'll get away with that. And Zolt Barabas with a brilliantly executed move, thanks to a small mistake from the 007 at the cutting, and Barabas moves into 6th place. Byford-Rue just off the road. He gets that back on the circuit. There's the Audi. Just has to get back into a rhythm again. He doesn't have to worry about Zolt Barabas. You know, the time difference between the two, it's 2 seconds a lap almost. I think for Byford, what he needs to do, I think he just hit the wall. That was unbelievably close if he did, because that was a huge snap of oversteer going over the top of Forest Elbow. It's so frustrating that camera angle cuts away right at the last minute. so you can't really see it. But of course, we are 11 laps into this race. We are coming up to the halfway mark of the session. And as I was saying, I was actually going to say, let's cut on board for a lap of Bathurst with the Audi R8. Byford Roux just slides a little bit wide there. Danny Felix, the first of the front runners to make a pit stop. So pitting from 5th place is Felix, on just a great run of form currently. And let's watch quietly as Byford Roux picks his way through the mountain section. So we'll go from here all the way to Forest Elbow. Into Forest Elbow we go, and Zolt Barabas, if you saw that on board, has spun at the S's, and it looks like he's got stuck. Let's just have a little look if we can scroll through. Has he hit the wall? He has. So after making a really fabulous move on the number 7, he's hit the wall, so he's spun coming down the S's. I wonder if he's just gone offline and he's found the barrier. Jamie Lee now in the pit, so pitting from the top 10 is Jamie. Barabas, let's have a look at this. He's got a little bit of damage to that car. I can see the wheel moving. I wonder if this will be a pit stop for him. Byford Roux pits from 5th position. So Felix, the first of the trendsetters to get his car into the pit lane, and Barabas will go in as well. So he'll get that damage fixed on the Nissan. Big slide from Matt Phillips' car there. So Matt Phillips, though, has put himself back into the top 10 after his incident from, well, I say incident, Matt's had a few incidents this evening, but he's now running in the top 10, and that car looking as clean as the day it left the factory. I want to have a little look. And Mikey's gone off at the S's as well, which is a big shame. I want to have a look at the replay for Barabas, because he was, like a lot of people, doing a really solid job, but seemingly has found the barrier. Following Liam Watkinson's car in a minute, but there's a certain angle that I'm after, which is this one. So there we go, that's the GTR going into the pits. No, that's not the GTR, my apologies. We will get there in the end. So Barabas on this lap was doing a completely solid job. He's got no one to worry about. He got past Byford Roux. He'd already pulled away. It's a great driver's helmet cam, this, isn't it? It goes through McPhillamy Park, and then we come into the S's, and he just loses it over the top, and that's it. Oof. That's such a frustrating way to go off the road as well. So he tries to spin the car around, gets it putting in the right direction, and then off we go. And then the tyres are overheated, and then he's gone and spun again. And then he's struggling to get the car to, so he bounces off the wall, bounces back off the wall, and we are in an Austin Powers situation. So he does eventually get his Nissan turned around, but he got a bit of unnecessary damage there. And that's the thing with when you make a mistake, everybody, is that it's important to just try and keep your head. Because when you make a mistake, you're desperate to get the car turned around and going again, but it's actually more important to just take stock of what's just happened. And oh, there's been an incident between Van Buren and Penders. That was over third place. I just cut forward because Penders was 6/10 from the back of Van Buren, and the two Ferraris have been into the wall. Or Van Buren spun and Penders has collected him. I'm just looking at Van Buren's car. He's absolutely limping. That much we can tell you. Let's just get a look at it from on board. Obviously, the game never wants us to go to the drivers we actually want to have. So, Penders looks like his car is. Let's just see him as he goes through goes onto the straight. He goes into the pits. He's going to be fixing that damage. Oh, and Van Buren's got significant damage. And he's going to go skating off the road. And that's going to be another car who falls by the wayside. Now, if Dennis Penders has significant damage, enough to delay him by at least 20 seconds. Oh, and Van Buren's hit Barabbas. What a disaster. Oh, Barabbas is going to be furious about that. That was an avoidable accident, unfortunately, and Jeffrey Van Buren has planted the side of the Nissan. And I know he's trying to get that car back to the pits as quickly as he can, but that wasn't the way to do it. What I was about to say, as Will Fielding now has pitted, the race leader, what I was about to say is that if Dennis Penders is in the pits for at least about 20 seconds with that damage, you could be seeing this man going into the podium positions with less than 28 minutes to go. I'm looking at the track map and it looks like Penders is coming out of the pits. But Van Buren is going to lose places. There's no denying that. So Penders is gone. He's out of the pit. So Danny Felix moves up to 4th place. He's being harassed and harangued by Danny Zoutenbayer, who is a lap down. I don't know whether Danny is Zoutenbayer, that is faster than Felix at this point. I'm not quite certain, but I'd be in two minds if I was Danny to let him go or try and just keep him behind. He doesn't have to move out of the way, obviously, because he's in front. So Jamie Lee's in 10th place. Joe Warner's in 12th. He's having a great race. Mikey's in 13th. He's doing a great job as Mikey. I know he's been in the pits a few times, but he's in front of 3 other cars. That's a big result for Mike. He just needs to keep going. Byford Rue, who is on a controller, let's not forget, is in a stunning 5th position. Comfortably the best result he's ever going to have. He's absolutely flying. Now, whilst that's going on, Howard Dunn has moved back up to 6th place. That is how wild this race has been for everybody. Howard Dunn, after slamming into the barrier earlier on, is in the top 6. Van Buren's still getting his damage fixed, so that could bring Matt Phillips into 7th place. Potentially. Salt Barabbas is still circular. I hope he hasn't got too much damage from that incident with Van Buren, but Van Buren's going to be in there for a while. We saw Steve Hall and Zoutenbayer get stuck for quite a while, so we don't know where Van Buren's going to end up. So Howard Dunn officially moves in front and up into 6th position. And Mark Chapman now, the only driver out there who is yet to make a mandatory pit stop. Lois Mangle and Jeffrey Van Buren obviously are serving theirs, but this guy out in the lead of the race, and I think Chappers is going to do what he did last time, really, is in the last race in Japan. He's just going to wait until he feels like pitting. He's in a battle with the long-time race leader that is Will Fielding, but he's also conscious that he just needs a good point finish, so he's trying to strike the balance between the two. And with 25 minutes remaining, Mark Chapman is moving himself into the lead of the drivers' standings. But who knows how this race is going to shape out. What we've seen so far can change everything around, and there you go. Mark Chapman deciding to completely prove me wrong. He's decided to pit now. And crosses the line there with a 2:07 after going into the pits. So Zol Barabas is 12.5 seconds behind Matt Phillips at the minute. And he's 30 seconds behind Howard Dunn. So Howard Dunn's done a 2:05 on the last lap. I'm going to keep an eye on what the lap times are. See how Phillips and Barabas are circulating. So Phillips is going to come across like he's going to do 2:04 from Matt. So really good time from the McLaren driver. He's got the bit between his teeth again now that he's in clean air. And Barabas, this is going to be an improvement on this lap time for the Nissan, and he's going to do a 2:51. But I think there's going to be some damage hindering that car, sadly. But he's recovered to 8th position. Van Buren is still in the pits, and he's only now just leaving. So he's going to come out behind Mark Chapman. And Jeffrey Van Buren is in 12th place. And Joe Warner is running in 11th, but he's now ran into the barrier. And oh, who is that coming? Is that Matt Phillips? Yes, just gets past him. I'm just looking to see the next car coming up is Will Fielding. So Will's going to have to be careful because we don't know how much that... Oh, there you go. We were going to say we don't know whereabouts on track that car is. Hopefully Joe can get that turned around and pointing in the right direction. But sadly for Joe, he was running in a comfortable 11th place. But Van Buren now is going to be within striking distance of him. And Barabas, I think, will do well to hold on to the rear spoiler of Will Field. And we know how quickly M4 man is. But he's leading the way and he's 17 seconds in front of Mark Chapman currently. Just got to keep your attentions focused. Does Will. He's had 3 race wins this season, has Will, but the last time he won a race was all the way back at round 6 at the Hungaroring. He did miss a number of rounds after that for a few, but the races he's done since then, he's finished 3rd and 5th. So it'll be a return to the top step for him if he continues on with this drive. Phillips still doing a great job. He's 17.6 seconds behind Howard Dunn. I wonder if he's catching Howard Dunn at the moment. It's 2:04.9 on that last lap, and it was a 2 minute. That was a good lap from Howard actually. He struck back there with 2:03.9. Let's just have a little look at what Byford Rue did. It was 2:05.9, so he's 2 seconds slower on that lap. But Howard's got to make up 32 seconds on the 007. And at the rate he's going, that would take him 16 laps. We don't have enough time for 16 laps in this race. Now, Danny Zartenbayer is still following Danny Felix at the minute. Penders is 10 seconds up the road currently. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let's go back to the incident. We haven't actually covered this yet, of what happened between Dennis Penders and Jeffrey Van Buren a couple of laps ago. So he's behind Van Buren, he's really close to the back of him, and then we get floating car syndrome. And then the next lap is when we have the incident. So now we get to see what happens. So from his point of view, let's go. Now we've got Van Buren in front of us. Into the S as we go. Van Buren's offline, bounces off the curb, smacks into the wall, and then puts Van Buren and Penders both hit the wall simultaneously. So Van Buren's mistake impacted Penders as well. So that's what caused that incident. That one's pretty much a unfortunate case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Will Fielding still in front. Mark Chapman in second place. And is Penders still carrying that damage? Yes, he is. So Penders deciding not to fix the damage. Clearly, he feels that he can get around this track without too much. Maybe he's feeling that if he pits, he'd have lost track position. But what that is doing is that Dennis Penders, I'm looking at the gap between himself and Danny Felix right now, as he comes across the lines, 10.6 seconds. So Danny lost a little bit of time on that sector. He had closed the gap down to less than 10. So we'll keep a vested interest in this in terms of whether Felix can close the gap up, because this would be a miracle podium if that would occur. Penders is lapping, I think he's lapping too badly at the minute by the seams of it. But we'll watch as Felix comes across the line again, what the gap is this time. 10.1. So I wonder if Penders has got a significant amount of straight line damage. Where is he on the road? Never is where you want the car to be. Penders doing 100 and... Yeah, he's very much struggling. He's doing 150 down the main straight. You compare that to Felix. He's doing 157. So that's not insignificant, that gap. Danny Zoutenbayer is all over the back of Felix. I am wondering whether at this point it might be better for Danny to let him go. You know, Zoutenbayer's not going to get in his way, I don't think. Zoutenbayer's in 12th place, and if my calculations are correct, I think with Felix being on lap 19, I think Zoutenbayer, let's just have a look actually whilst we're here, he's on lap 16. He's not a threat to anybody. I mean, technically this is the... Oh no, I spoke too soon. Zoutenbayer has the nicest spin you could possibly have at that corner, and just has a little bump reversing back off the wall. So Danny will be delighted at that. Felix, that is, not Zoutenbayer. He'll be chuffed to pieces that Ferrari has gone out of his way. He doesn't have to worry about the car behind, because that'll play in your mind as a driver. You know that there's a car behind you, not in the same race as you, and just trying to get past. But that car is out of Felix's mind now, and can he go off and set after Dennis Penders? Can he do that? You know, these two looking at a wonderful result. Byford Rood looking at a fabulous result as well in 5th as Zoutenbayer goes off the road. There's Steve Hall. He's got past Mikey. Mikey's had some more dramas out on circuit. There's Penders with the damage. It's 2 minutes 6 from Felix on that last lap. Just looking to see the gap. Looks like that gap's just extended out a little bit between Penders and Felix. That looks like it's up to 13 seconds. And then it comes back down to about 12.5. Let's just go back to the times. Let's have a look at those. So Penders on the most recent lap, he's comfortably in the 2 minute 5s. But before his incident was in the 2 minute 3s. So it is a lot of time he's losing relative to himself. Felix was a little bit slower on that lap. He did a 2 minute 6. And then, just for context, we have a look at Byford Rood. Byford Rood had a mistake on that last lap. He was on the 2 minute 7s for that effort. And how we're done, we might as well keep a close eye. A 2 minute 5 as well. So a couple of drivers having a few mistakes on the last lap. So all is not quite what it seems. This has got a long way to go, with a quarter of the race distance remaining. I still feel that it's not at all settled. And yeah, look at this. Look at the damage. Look at Penders. He's having to turn the wheel just slightly to the right to keep it pointing in a straight line. I'm impressed that he's managing to do 2 minute 5s with that lap time. It is very impressive from the Belgian. And if he were to secure his second ever podium, it'd be a privilege for me to see, because I've talked so much about him, about his performances and how consistent he is and what he what he brings to the championship. He's always racing. He's always on it. And he's just Mr. Consistent. But this would be a really nice moment for me as a commentator to see him get a podium. But it's far from over because Felix caught him on that last lap. It was half a second quicker, was the McLaren. Jeffrey Van Buren is... Well, he's just unlapped himself from Jamie Lee, who spun into the wall. But Jamie is significantly ahead of Van Buren. It looks like Jamie's going to get his first top 10 ever in ACC Race Nation. Will Fielding's not worrying about anything around him. He's 16 seconds clear of Mark Chapman and running at a very consistent pace. No problems at all for the BMW man. Lewis Mangle is still out there circulating. He might be 8 laps down, but as I said earlier, mileage is important. Learning the game, learning the car. The M4 isn't a bad place to first learn the car. It's nicely laid out, but it would take him a little bit of time before he's rocking up with the rest of the gang. Howard Dunn is 27 seconds behind Byford Rue. I feel, I will say this now, I feel like this was a big opportunity for Howard to get his first podium. The fact that he's still in the top 6 considering the accident he had speaks volumes about the speed and performance he's demonstrated tonight. It is a shame that one mistake has took him out of that fight, but I feel that it could have been and arguably should have been his first podium this evening. However, I don't want to talk about that in a negative way. He's demonstrated once again how he's improving all the time, and he's developing. And the lap time he did during qualifying to match Mark Chapman was absolutely inspired. So there'll be a lot of positives. There'll be a bit of a sting coming out of this race, but there'll be a lot of positives to take away from this race for Howard. That's what he's just got to keep focusing on those positives. Will Fielding, though, looks like he's going to put a lap on Matt Phillips, so that means everyone up to Howard Dunn will have been lapped in this race, which just shows you the level of competitiveness that has happened again here tonight. There's been so much racing action. Chapman's done a solid job this evening. He's, as I've said a number of times, on track to take the Drivers' Championship lead for season 12. 29 points will put him on to 261. And we'll have a 3-race flash to the finish starting next week with Kyle Army and to Laguna Seca, which is a track surprisingly that I've not commentated on in this championship. So I'm quite excited to see how the cars get on around the flagship American circuit. And then the final race, of course, at the Nordschleife, where double points will be on offer. That could make all the difference in this championship. But it is amazing that the new championship leader, as it stands, has still not yet won a race this season. He should have won last week at Suzuka, to be honest. I feel that was a victory that was just snatched away from him as a result of the strategy from Dan Hatton in the end. But Chapman has just quietly gone about his business this season and has rarely put a foot wrong. He's had the odd blip of a result, but still recovered into the top 10. So you can't even say that they were significantly bad races. Howard Dunn is back in the pits, so he's clearly whacked something. And Jeffrey Van Buren is in the pits as well, so those two having another pit stop. Zolt Barabas then moves into 7th place. He's only 9 seconds behind Matt Phillips, which is unbelievable. Dennis Penders is still running in 3rd, but he is getting caught by Danny Felix. That's now 8 seconds practically. Byford Rue's in 5th position. He's 26 seconds away from Felix. Matt Phillips is 6th. I would say it's a 10-second gap to Zolt Barabas. Then it's Jamie Lee, and then I think it's still going to be Howard Dunn and Van Buren, potentially in the top 10, but Liam Watkinson's sniffing an opportunity here. This could be possible for Liam. He's had, as I said before, he's had so many 11th place finishes. Van Buren's still in the pit. Howard Dunn's still in the pits. They're both still in the pits. Liam Watkinson, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Liam Watkinson is going to slide into the top 10 and forget 10th place. He's going to be 9th. And I think Matt Phillips... Yeah, I was going to say, I think Matt Phillips has got a bit of damage. But Matt Phillips is being caught by Zolt Barabas, so this is all going to come back together in the end. So, Liam Watkinson runs in 9th place. Jeffrey Van Buren is 10th. And Howard Dunn is 11th. They are going to concertina up in this towards the race, at the end of the race here, with 9 minutes to go. Danny Felix is still catching Dennis Penders. This race isn't over. It's just a little bit squeaky for Penders. He won't like the fact that Penders is closing, rather, Felix is closing the gap. They're both begin with the letter D, and my brain's struggling. But 7.1 seconds now for Danny in 4th position. It's coming down per sector. So there's Matt Phillips. There's Zolt Barabas, who's getting past Liam Watkinson. He's got to be careful because he's going to get overtaken by Van Buren. Oh, he's gone over the curb and he's spun over the infield. And Liam, can he get the car turned round? Where's Howard Dunn? There he goes past, and oh, what a shame. And Liam Watkinson, in his innocence, I think, to be honest with you, was just trying to move out of the way. And that's Byford Rue in the pits. Jacob Byford Rue's gone into the pits. Matt Phillips is going to be in 5th. I cannot believe what is happening, ladies and gentlemen. I have no explanations for what is going on with these pit stops towards the end of the race. But Matt Phillips, the Canadian who, at the start of the series, who seemed quite far off it in the nicest way possible to him, back in the first event of the season. He finished 23rd that day, but since then has improved and improved and improved. Got his first top 10 not so long ago. I think that was at the Red Bull Ring, and it was a great drive that day. Would you have ever expected the Canadian to be driving to 5th place as it stands? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He does have a charging Barabas coming after him, though. And this, don't forget, this is a 5th place where he's been in the pits with significant damage already. Don't spin it now, Matt. Do not give a commentator's curse. This is not the time to be doing it. Less than 7 minutes to go. Keep it on the road. Danny Felix, a 2-minute 3.7 on that lap. And the gap is 5 seconds. Look at the gap. Danny Felix can see him. If we go on board, that's the target he's aiming for. I reckon he's got 3, maybe 4 laps, depending on when Will Fielding tags the start-finish line. This isn't over. This is not over at all. If you are watching, do not adjust your channel. Watch this till the end. This is all going to come together in these final few laps. We haven't really talked about Jamie Lee getting a top 10 result. He's had brilliant. He's been outstanding tonight, Jamie. We haven't talked about him much. He's just been on the road, consistent. He's had the odd spin, but he hasn't had a big incident. He's just got on with it. He's going past Liam Watkinson, who's slightly off the road again. But Jamie Lee, I mean, this has been the day of days for the drivers who've just kept it on the track. Jamie, in his 5th event with the championship, hasn't had a top 10. He's going to get 7th place. I can't envisage Byford Rue now catching up to him. He's on the other side of the circuit. Byford Rue still on his way to his best ever result. We just have to find out why he pitted. What happened there with the Audi? Not sure why he had to pit at the end. Maybe he had damage. It looked like there was a bit scratchy at the back, but not 100% certain. I'm looking at the... Oh, every time he goes through the left-hander, there is so much commitment from that car, but it wobbles about like jelly. And he's not giving up at all. Felix down to 4.3. Sweaty palms going on over in Belgium because all of Pender's fans will be seeing this lime green monster appearing in the rear view. .7. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Mikey Keaton's still circulating. Well done, sir. You're doing a great job out there in 15th. Big result, big points for Mikey. Just needs to keep this up, keep driving. Lyford Rue a bit away from everybody. Everybody's sort of spread out. We're looking at the fight for 3rd place and we're looking to fight for 5th. So Zolt Barabas has got to... Oh, as Chapman hits the wall actually there on the exit, that just caught the end. Chapman is a few seconds behind Van Buren, who's a few seconds behind Barabas. Barabas is 5.6 away from Matt Phillips, who might just survive. Joe Warner's just had a little moment, but he's got himself going again. Joe doing a good job in 12th. You haven't spoke much, but this is the fight. This is the one to watch. 2.6 seconds. Goodness me. Stand up. Get your prayer beads out. Because this is going to go to the final lap, I think. Penders is trying to put a lap on Liam Watkinson, who's got damage. So the commentator's curse. I'm not even going to call it a curse for Bathurst. It's just the drivers, realistically. Let's watch as the lap times tick over. We've got less than 3 minutes remaining. So we've got this lap, and I reckon one more. So we'll head on to the penultimate lap of the race. Gap down to 1.8. Where will Liam go? He moves right out of the way. 1.7. And Felix flashing the lights. I don't know if he's doing that just to bother Penders. 2 minutes 6 from the Belgian. A 2 minute 4 from Felix. 2 seconds. That gap is 1.8 as they go on to what I'm going to suspect is the penultimate lap of the race here. I feel like the front two positions are settled with Will Fielding and Mark Chapman in a race of their own this evening. But this is what we're watching. A first on-screen podium for Dennis Penders, or a first ever podium for Danny Felix in ACC Race Nation. What a story. And it all comes down to these next few corners, realistically. Let's get to Dennis Penders. Have a look at the view back from the Belgian. 1.2 now, the gap. You can see the lime green monster just appearing in the background. I'm calling it a monster because it's so shockingly green. It almost blends in with the BP Ultimate advertising. Into the next couple of corners here we go. At the left-hander. Into McPhillamy Park they come. The car drops down. No issues for Penders through there. And then into the S's. And into the dipper we go. And look at the McLaren. Oh, that's a bad play. Oh, and there's contact between Jamie Lee and Felix. And that might have just separated the battle. And if that is the case, Danny Felix will be lamenting Jamie for that. He had to push really hard into that corner. And that gap has just gone out. And that might have just settled it. Oh, and Dennis Penders will be just rubbing his hands of a little bit of relief. That Ferrari is struggling. Going through the... I'm not sure what's happening with Penders' car here. Down through the gears we go. Into the left-hander. 2 seconds the gap back again. 2.1. I wonder if that little incident might have just put us off a last-minute attack. We have had the warning to say that Will Fielding is on the final lap of the race. Chappers is in second. Barabas is 3.5 away from Matt Phillips, who's going to take a stonking result as it stands. Oh, as Barabas slams into the wall there. And Felix has gone off the road, and that is that for the race. And he was oh so close. But I think he'll look back at that Jamie Lee incident and be really furious about it. And that is a shame, because that has robbed us of a glorious fight at the end. I would have really loved to have seen the big battle between Penders and Felix, but we are going to be calling some great results in a moment's time. But speaking of great results, we haven't seen much of him today. But Will Fielding, this is the type of performance he was doing earlier in the season, getting out in front, disappearing off the road, not putting a foot wrong. Absolutely flawless from Will Fielding tonight. Not a foot wrong. He's just driven the race that he needed to do. Round the final corner at Murray's. It's another race win for Will Fielding here at Mount Panorama. Fabulous drive from the number 22. Mark Chapman is going to take the championship lead, and a brilliant second place for the 111 car. He comes across the line less than 15 seconds away from the race winner. Matt Phillips has finished the race. We'll talk about him in a minute. But I'm finally going to get to commentate on an on-screen podium for Dennis Penders. He's done it the hard way with the incident that he had with Van Buren earlier. But at long last, I get to commentate on this moment. I have been waiting for such a long time to talk to all of you to reward this driver. Dennis Penders runs around the final corner. It's third place for the Belgian. Great drive from the 103. And keep the applause coming, because Danny Felix has put in the drive of his life to finish in fourth. A stunning result for the 985. What a performance from those two. And Matt Phillips, let's not forget, he's been brilliant this evening as well. Jamie Lee is out there somewhere. The cameraman just needs to point the car at the racetrack. Sadly, has had an incident in the last lap, which has affected the fight for the podium. But Jamie is so far clear of Byford Rue. I think if he did get a penalty for it, it won't affect him. But great effort from Jamie. He's done another driver who's done a really good job this evening. A feel-good story, that, for 7th place. This man, despite the damage he's now got on the front end of the car, beautiful performance. Absolutely stunning. On the controller, he was running in 5th place. We'll have to find out why he pitted. Maybe it was for fuel. But Byford Rue, his best ever finish in ACC Race Nation. Considering the circumstances, that's a glorious effort from him. Mikey Keaton just coming across the line. Well done, Mikey, getting across the line for 14th place, mate. That's a good drive, that, despite difficult circumstances. And Liam Watkinson will be the last driver to come across the line. There's a few people leaving, so we'll wait for the final results to come up on the screen. But Liam Watkinson, with that Porsche that just seemingly liked to bounce a lot, not as much as the R8 of Byford Rue, admittedly, will be the last car to come down the Conrod Straight. And in fact, the game is not even letting him finish. So Liam Watkinson will be 11th. But Will Fielding, driver of the day today, not put a foot wrong. He's been fantastic, although Liam Watkinson just has. Mark Chapman in 2nd place, and Dennis Penders getting an on-screen podium for 3rd place, his 2nd within ACC Race Nation. Danny Felix came oh so close to challenging for that podium, but controversy, I think, at the end there with the incident with Jamie Lee for 4th. Matt Phillips, brilliant drive for him in the number 73 for 5th. Zoltan Barabas had a great recovery drive. It could have been a podium for him had he have not slipped off the road. He gets 6th place in the end with Jamie Lee 7th. Jacob Byford Rue in 8th position. Jeffrey Van Buren, he was running in the... could have run in the top 6, but he had to pit again. 9th for him. Howard Dunn, what could have been for the Aston Martin driver, in 10th place. Liam Watkinson gets another 11th place in the end, but still another solid drive from him. Joe Warner, we didn't talk too much about today, has had a great performance to come home in 12th position. Steve Hall in 13th after the drama earlier on, which put him right the way down the field. The same with Danny Zoutenbayer and Mikey Keating having several little issues through the session. And Lois Mangle also classified in the end. 100% finish rate for the race this evening, which is absolutely what we like to see. Good to see you, Dan. Hope you're enjoying the Principality on your holiday. And yeah, a couple of other comments that have come through there. Shame for Jacob. When people are learning, it's a little bit difficult for them. You were learning as well once, Jacob, but to be fair to you, you've done a great drive today. Thanks, John. Really do appreciate the comments. But that is it from Bathurst. An eventful race, to say little of it. Almost an inevitability with Will Fielding at the front, back where he feels he belongs at the front of the pack, with Mark Chapman, and a great bunch of drives throughout the field from a number of competitors this evening. It has been fabulous to watch. Really nice stories to talk about. Next week, we'll be heading off to South Africa for Kyalami, Howard Dunn's home circuit, and the Aston Martin is pretty handy around that circuit. We'll see if he can try and attack that track once again. But that's it from me, Jack Millington, commentating for ACC Race Nation, wherever it might be in the big wide world. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week for round 13 here with ACC Race Nation.